Assalamualaikum and good day everybody. Today we will discuss theories of international trade and investment. As you can see, we are taking a little break from discussing the C's in international business, the risk in international business. We have covered cross-cultural risk and also country risk. We will need to cover a topic on theories to help you understand further the risk involved in international business. Two things here. We will discuss the question of why nations trade, and after they have been trading with each other, how can they enhance their competitive advantage. We will also discuss firm level theories. Why, how firms internationalize, and if they have internationalized, how can they gain and sustain competitive advantage. So basically, understanding why, how nations trade, why, how firms internationalize. Free trade will allow consumers to access the products that they want at a lower cost. But what theories that can explain this? Two level of theories, nation level theory and firm level theory. For nation level theories, we have classical and contemporary. Classical meaning these are very, very old theories that has been used in economy. And we also have contemporary theories that we use until today, theories that we use in management. And if you are able to make it through, so strategic management you will learn in your third or fourth year. We will also discuss firm level theories. Firm level theories will discuss more about firm internationalization. There are theories based on FDI, theories on also non-FDI. You still remember what is FDI? Foreign direct investment. So, for nation level explanation, we will discuss why nations trade, and these are the theories that we will be discussing today. We will also discuss how nations can enhance their competitive advantage. These are more modern theories. We will discuss more contemporary theories on nation level explanation. We have discussed this last few weeks. International trade has been happening for a very long time, hundreds, thousands years back. Firms do not internationalize, firms do not compete. What has been competing are the nations. Nations trade within each other. So from one country to another through various trade routes. One of the most important trade routes in the world at the time and until now is the Silk Route or Silk Roads route. So this route is so important because it connects both the Western and Eastern world. Hundreds, thousands years back, we do not have internet, we do not have telephones. So all communications, all trade information are being transferred through physical transportation. And in this journey, a lot of countries are trading with each other, they are competing with each other. So, in classical theories, we will try to address the question of why do nations trade. There are a few theories discussed in this aspect: mercantilism, absolute advantage, and comparative advantage. Do not be confused with both of these. We will also discuss newer theories with regards to why nations trade, factor proportions theory, international product life cycle, and also new trade theory. Why do nations trade? It encourages countries to use their national resources. They use their national resources more efficiently, and trading, doing business with each other, import, export, will help them trade efficiently and to increase their national wealth through specialization. Remember when we discussed in the first few weeks of the class, each country has their own specialization because each country has their own physical uniqueness. They also have non-tangible uniqueness. So these interact with each other. Some countries are blessed with fertile lands. Some countries are blessed with minerals and resources. Some countries are just so large and they can house a lot of population, and this will provide a location, provide a context setting for non-tangible resources. It can be knowledge, it can be skill building for the people. So, creating more human capital. Okay, remember how China is known for specializing in silk that comes from an interaction of physical and non-physical resources. So they can trade, they can sell, they can export their silk. So nations trade because it will enable industries and workers to be more productive. One of the first and more important theories in international trade is mercantilism. This is a belief popular in the 16th century. According to this theory, national prosperity, the wealth of nations, how to make countries rich, is through selling more, buying less, maximize export, minimize import. That's logical, right? Because in this time, the payment is gold. So a nation's wealth and power, they are best served by increasing export and collecting precious metals, metals such as gold and silver. So this is one of the original idea that enable us to understand that a nation should run on a trade surplus, meaning we sell more and we buy less. So we get surplus. And according to this theory, a strong nation is a nation that has a large population. Why? A large population provide labor, market, soldier. So that's your workforce, that's your consumers, that's your national security. I show you this picture here because mercantilism is one of the explanation why colonialism happens at the time. Remember, 16th century is when colonialism happens a lot in multiple places in the world. Okay, just a bunch of people taking a slice of the world. We also have mercantilism in our modern world. There are supporters for neo-mercantilism right now. Labor unions, they want to protect domestic jobs. Farmers, They want to keep their crop prices high again because you want to sell more and buy less. Some manufacturers also support mercantilism because they rely on export. I also highlight the importance of colonization here because during this time, this is the expansion of the slave trade. So a few limitation of mercantilism is if you export more and import less, you limit choices for consumers. And if you limit choices for consumers, consumers will experience, the nation will experience product shortage. If there's product shortage, inflation will happen. Okay, let's go back to colonization here. Mercantilism and colonization, they support each other. How? Okay, one of the most important countries who have that has colonized a large part of the world is Netherlands. If you look into the world map, Netherlands is such a small country, as you can see here. But they have multiple colonies, yeah, through the process of colonization, of course. Okay. Colonization works for world domination at this time. Why? Because the mother country, which is Netherlands, they own the colony, the colonized countries, meaning, okay, but the colony are not able to trade with each other. So Netherlands, after they have colonized Belgium, Brazil, and all these countries, Netherlands, this small country, they are able to own this country's people, the population, meaning they have resources in terms of soldiers, in terms of labor force, and also consumer. And because the colonies cannot trade with each other, all the wealth that come from the colonies will go to the mother country, which is the Netherlands. And this is how the one of the smallest countries in the world, yeah, they were able to be one of the most important powers at the time. Okay, because of limitations of mercantilism, remember, it causes inflation. That is why free trade is a more superior approach. That's why you still need to export, but you still need to import. You will still need to buy. Countries still need to buy because you will get more choices, better choices for consumers and firms. And in that process, you will lower prices for goods for consumers and firms. And because of that competitiveness, there's better wage for workers. And if workers get better wage, they are able to become better consumers and they have higher standards of living. And throughout that process, poorer countries can increase their standard of living and become less poor. Here, the poor countries will stay poor because they need to serve the mother country. Next theory in classical theory is absolute advantage principle. This is explained by Adam Smith. He did not agree with mercantilism. If you sell more and if you keep selling, you will waste national resources. If a country has a large reserve of gold and keep selling that gold, one day the gold will be finished and the country has no resources left. So, according to him, a better approach is a country will benefit more by producing primarily products that has an absolute advantage, meaning that if a country has a lot of resources, they have gold, they have silver. So instead of selling both, you only sell one. For example, we have two countries here, Thailand and Malaysia. Thailand is able to produce 1 ton of rice, 1 ton of palm oil. Malaysia also is able to produce 1 ton of rice and 1 ton of palm oil. But to produce 1 ton of rice, Thailand only need one worker. To produce 1 ton of palm oil, Thailand will need two workers. But Malaysia will need 6 workers to produce 1 ton of rice. They need 3 workers to produce 1 ton of palm oil. Okay, so this is a question of what kind of products that a country should export. A country should not export so much product. So, in terms of efficiency, Thailand is more efficient in producing rice. So, in comparison to palm oil, so this is what they should export. Okay, Malaysia, so many workers to produce 1 ton of rice. So, Malaysia is better off producing palm oil. Okay, so a question of whether or not they will trade or not will be discussed by the next theory, which is comparative advantage principle. This is originated by David Ricardo in the 1800s. According to him, a country is better to trade even if one has absolute advantage in the production of all products. Because what matters is not the absolute cost of production, but the relative efficiency with which it can produce the product. The key word here is relative efficiency, because it is quite related to the absolute advantage principle. A country cannot produce everything, cannot sell everything. So, remember Thailand and Malaysia? Thailand, in comparison to Thailand and Malaysia, Thailand is actually more efficient in producing both rice and palm oil. But to produce and sell both will not be efficient for Thailand, will not be effective for Thailand. And because Thailand and Malaysia, they are neighbours, Thailand and Malaysia should take advantage of the distance between these two countries. So, in comparison to Thailand and Malaysia, which country is more efficient in producing rice? Thailand. Yeah. But Malaysia is more efficient in producing palm oil than rice. So because they need to trade. So Malaysia produce palm oil and trade them with Thailand. So Malaysia gets rice, Thailand gets palm oil. In this way, Thailand will save more of its labor by producing what? The commodity that they are specializing in. So, specializing. Each country benefits by specializing in the product in which it has a comparative advantage and importing the other product. So as you can see here, it is more efficient to let Malaysia produce palm oil because Malaysia produces palm oil better than rice, rather than producing both commodities. So these are early theories. So what are their limitations? They did not account for international transportation cost. And they also did not account for the role of the government. The government is able to impose protectionism. What are protectionism? We have discussed this in the political environment of international business, yeah, and investing in certain industries. Of course, protectionism was not a practice in the 16th century, 17th and 18th century. It is a practice now. So we can take some principles of the early trade theories, but we cannot use them 100%. They also did not account for services. Some services cannot be traded. Some services can be traded. And many firms, scale economies and superior business strategies will provide efficiency and other advantages. But early trade theories fail to account for this. Countries like Singapore, countries like Japan, they do not have obvious comparative advantage. But firms, businesses in Japan and Singapore, they are able to be successful anyway. So another limitation of these theories, they did not take into account the importance of business strategy. Next theory is factor proportions theory. This is also known as factor endowments theory. Keyword here is factor. Whatever that is important, whatever that is regarded as an asset for that country. So in this theory, it argues that each country should produce and export products that use relatively abundant factors of production. And import goods that intensively use relatively scarce factors of production. Okay, so many words here. Again, this theory focuses on efficiency. If you need so much resources to produce 1 ton of commodity, it's better to import them. There are two assumptions under this theory. First, products they differ in terms of types and quantities of factors, and countries also differ in terms of type and quantity of production. Here we focus on resources. What are the resources that are abundant or scarce in certain countries? Basically, countries produce and export with factors of production that they have a lot of, and import goods that uses resources that they have less of. For example, some countries are labor abundant. What are examples of labor abundant countries? Countries with high in population. High population meaning they have a large reserve of labor. Also meaning labor cost is low. Okay. Some countries are capital abundant, meaning that a lot of capital are flowing through the country. So usually this type of countries, labor cost is high. So what can they do about it? A country that is relatively labor abundant should specialize in production of labor intensive goods. Then export these goods for capital intensive goods. China, for example, is a labor abundant country. They are specializing in production of relatively labor intensive goods, manufacturing goods, a lot of manufactured items being traded from China because it's just so cheap. Why is it cheap? One of the reason is because the labor cost is just so cheap. They can sell this and receive money from countries that are capital abundant. So, a country that is relatively capital abundant should specialize in the production of relatively capital intensive goods. What are relatively capital intensive goods? Education is capital intensive. Services, banking services, IT services are capital intensive goods. So export this in exchange for labor intensive goods. So it just makes sense for China and Singapore to trade with each other because one is labor abundant, one is capital abundant. But this theory also has their own disadvantages and they also have their own limitation. This limitation is explained by this Unity paradox. Countries can successfully export products that use less abundant resources. How? Through outsourcing. US is a capital intensive country. They're not really labor abundant country. But somehow they are also able to trade cheaply because they can do that throughout sourcing. So all in all, this shows that international trade is complex. It cannot be fully explained by a single theory. Another theory is international product life cycle theory. You have learned this in basics of marketing, so fundamental of marketing. According to the international product life cycle theory, each product and its associated manufacturing technologies, they go through three stages of evolution. They get introduced, they mature, and they standardize. So, in these three stages, there are three types of countries. Inventor country and the country that buys the product. So in the introduction stage, the inventor country enjoy a monopoly both in manufacturing and export. In the maturity stage, the product's manufacturing becomes relatively standardized and other countries are able to produce and export the same product. Once they have reached the standardization stage, the manufacturing will slow down in the original innovator country. Then the innovator country will become importer of the product. How does this look for TVs? Okay. Okay. Three types of countries here. First, where the product is being launched. TV sets. Let's say they originate from the US and UK. When they were first introduced, they start to export. Okay. And then developed countries, because they are the ones who can afford the product, they buy. But as time goes by, the developed countries began to learn the technology, they become the exporters. And the country where the product is being launched starting to buy. So what happens in the low income country? The technology will come to them much later stage. Trade theory by Paul Krugman, they started in the 1970s. This is a theory that originates from the economy field. So according to him, he observed that trade grows fastest among industrialized countries. These countries has no clear comparative advantage. Raw materials not a lot, and maybe the climate is not so good, with similar factors of production. And he argues that economies of scale are an important factor in some industries for superior international performance, even in the absence of superior comparative advantages. And some industries succeed best as their volume of production increases. What's interesting about this theory is that it comes from economy. So they talk about production, productivity, efficiency. So this is a standard for high performing countries or high performing geographical area. One of the best examples for this is Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is known for its specialization of IT. It started with HP starting their computer business there, and then their success attracted more and more IT firms in that area, not because it's got any particular benefit, but new firms start to get the network benefits of being around other IT setups. So more and more IT companies setting up their businesses there, they become each other's clients, they become each other's suppliers. And because of being near to each other, they get the network benefit of learning. How do they learn? Good employees from one company will move around other companies within that area and increase the knowledge of the companies there. So here they disperse information, they increase their competency and knowledge, all through specialization. So that was nation level explanation, trying to answer the questions of why nations trade. It started with the classical theories, and we have ended with new trade theory. Next, we discuss how can nations enhance their competitive advantage. These three theories come from Michael Porter, talking about how industries can excel with the help of the government and interacting with the competitive and comparative advantage of the country. We move on to contemporary theories. Theories that try to answer the question of how can nations enhance their competitive advantage. There are many theories in this for this question, but for your level, we discuss theories by I would say theories. It's a model, 3 models by Michael Porter, talking about the competitive advantage of nations through the Diamond Model and National Industrial Policy. So 3 things here. Porter likes to talk about the connection between industry, firms, and also nations. These 3, they work together to create a nation that excels in a specific industry. Okay. And to understand the models, let's understand the competitive advantage of nations. Remember, in the classical theories, we talk about comparative advantage of nations, absolute advantage of nations. Now nations have to be competitive. The competitive advantage of nations depend on the collective competitive advantage of the nation's firms. In absolute advantage theory, in comparative advantage theory, nations only trade with and within each other. But because we are in the modern times, nations compete with each other through their firms. And this relationship is reciprocal because firms create industries. Industries contribute to the development of a nation. So we try to associate different countries with specific industry. We have Britain for its pharmaceutical industry. We know Germany for its engineering. Malaysia, we are known for our halal technology. So each nation has their own competitive advantage, and if it's been planned well, that industry can survive and can be a competitive advantage for that specific country. Here, Michael Porter emphasized on the role of innovation. We all know how firms can innovate through major product, new ways of manufacturing, marketing or organizing operation. So innovation is important because it leads to national competitive advantage, because firms keep on creating new things, keep on creating things that are more and more useful, so it become more competitive for the nation. So he highlights the role of innovation and research and development because it can provide firms access to talent, cut costs through relocation of R&D activities and promoting productivity. Productivity is the value of output produced by a unit of labour or capital. It is also a key source of competitive advantage of nations through firms. The greater the productivity of the firm, the more efficiently it uses its resources. So, if the aggregate productivity is great, the greater the aggregate productivity of the firms in a nation, the more efficiently the nation uses its resources. Here, a country's planning and agenda is important. And aggregate productivity is a key determinant of the nation's standard of living. This is beyond our lesson today, but a nation that is competitive has citizens with rising standard of living. So creating high value workers, creating high value consumers. So essentially, a nation can become competitive when a nation has an abundance of comparative advantage in a given industry through the firms. And firms have collectively, in a specific industry, have abundant competitive advantage. But this has to be in interaction with the firm. The firm and collective, a great number of firms will have a competitive advantage. And if one firm has specific knowledge, capabilities, skills, and they compete with similar firms within a specific industry, that industry has a competitive advantage. And that industry will interact with that country's comparative advantage. If you can still remember what we have learned in classical theories, comparative advantage, what is a specific thing that a country is very good and efficiently, they can efficiently produce. So, a country has comparative advantage in a specific industry through its resources. Resources, land, climate, low cost labour, skilled labour, whatever. They create an industry with a collective number of firms. They work together to create a national competitive advantage. So, every country has their own uniqueness. Even Singapore, such a small piece of land, it has its own uniqueness. Okay, and then work together with the firms that create a specific industry. They together create a national competitive advantage. Please remember, this is not for a specific country only. specific country with a specific industry. This theory especially try to relate an industry that has connection with one country. Okay, British pharmaceutical, Malaysia halal. One of the best example for this is New Zealand dairy industry. So when you look into this map, New Zealand is a country so far away from everything. A lot of countries, they develop through manufacturing, import, export. Because New Zealand is so far away geographically, they are able to do import, export, yes, but it's just too far and too costly to do so. But New Zealand has good climate, a large land useful for agricultural practices. Remember when we talk about New Zealand, we talk about dairy. It is actually a planned effort from the government with the farmers, with research institutions, with the firms, suppliers and so on. So, New Zealand with its farmers and research institutes, okay, New Zealand has a company called Fonterra. Fonterra is a research institute specifically developed and created to do research and to develop technology in the dairy industry to solve problems like how to make sure your dairy expire late, how to make nicer tasting cheese and so on. So farmers, what they have to do, they just have to take care of their cows, make sure their cows are happy, because the role of research has been done by a company, the role of marketing has been done by a company. So this person make sure his cows are happy. There are other people, there are other companies. He works with a chocolate company, for example, within the dairy industry. This will also explain how an industry become competitive. So sources of competitive advantage can be explained by Porter's diamond model. So it is an interaction between a firm's strategy, structure and rivalry, the demand conditions, related and supported industries and factor conditions. So they interact with each other. Factor conditions refer to quality and quantity of labour, natural resources, capital, any uniqueness of the firm within a specific industry. It can also be factor conditions of that geographical area where the firm is working in. So this is the most important source of national advantage. There's also related and supporting industries. If a firm works in a careful presence of suppliers, competitors and complementary firms, they are able to excel. It is also important a concentration of suppliers and supporting firms. So they can create industrial clusters. Remember the Silicon Valley example we just talked just now? This is also similar to Porter's related and supporting industry, which is a strong cluster can serve as an export platform for the nation. This also explains a lot of countries, they try to create industrial clusters to ensure competitiveness of specific industries. Another factor is demand conditions at home, the demand of the customers in terms of strength and sophistication. Lastly is the firm strategy, structure and rivalry. domestically, and the conditions that determine how a nation's firms are created, organized and managed. So it is highly related to business ecosystem, the financing structure and so on. Coming back to the New Zealand dairy industry, New Zealand has their own demand condition. They also have good factors of production. They have a lot of supporting industry. A lot is one, and they really work together. Okay. There's also skills and effort that comes from the entrepreneur and the farmers themselves. Creating a competitive advantage will need a joint effort with the government as well. So Michael Porter come up with the National Industrial Policy. So National Industrial Policy is an integration of firm level and nation level theories. This is a proactive economic development plan employed by the government. Why? They want to nurture and support promising industry sectors that have potential, sectors that are high value. How? Through tax incentive, monetary and fiscal policy, rigorous education system and so on. A lot of countries are able to create this using whatever resources that they have, using whatever uniqueness that they have. We've just talked about dairy in New Zealand. Vietnam also done the same thing by privatizing and focusing on manufacturing and trading. Singapore developed itself by adopting pro-business, pro-investment policy. All this stimulated economic growth for these countries. So, nations can enhance their competitive advantage by working together. Who works together? Firms that create industries and interacting with the nation. There's also a strong role of the government in this aspect. Next, we have firm level explanation on international business. So these theories, they explain why and how firms internationalize, and after they have internationalized, how can they gain and sustain competitive advantage. The question of why and how firms internationalize are answered by the process of firm internationalization. Some firms internationalize, they take longer time. Some firms internationalize using a very short route, but they end up internationalizing anyway. And after they have internationalized, they can gain and sustain competitive advantage. How? Remember, internationalization can happen through FDI and non-FDI. So if they are internationalizing using FDI, they can gain and sustain competitive advantage through several strategy and theories. If they internationalize without FDI strategy, they can gain and sustain competitive advantage too through collaborative ventures and using networks. We look into them one by one. Firm level explanation and firm level theories in international business, they ask the questions of why and how firms internationalize, and how can they gain and sustain competitive advantage. The origins of firm internationalization discussion started around 1950s, 1960s, when multinational companies begin to internationalize their operation. So scholars start to find out how they internationalize, how do they decide where to internationalize? Okay, through these theories. Okay, one of the most important theories in international business is internationalization process of the firm. We also call this incremental stage theory. According to this theory, firms internationalize in an incremental manner, stage by stage. It also is being called Uppsala model because it is being developed in a place called Uppsala in Sweden. It is also called sometimes incremental model, again because it's stage by stage. Stage can be a lot of things. It can start domestically and then going to have more and more commitment in the international market. For this, I give you an example of Tesco. Tesco, they originated from the UK. They do their internationalization process incrementally by first choosing markets that are similar to them, markets that are culturally similar, markets that are geographically near, because it's less risk. And then Europeans know European market. So as they get more confident, as they get more resources, they make more money, they are able to internationalize to more high risk countries. High risk meaning, we've talked about this before, things that we don't know are risky. Environments that are ambiguous, that is risky. So for Tesco from the UK to go to China, that is a high risk move. But they are able to do that because they have done their internationalization process incrementally. So from home market to a nearer market to the distant market. But firms can also internationalize in a non-incremental manner, or incrementally but very very quickly. So one of the opposites of the incremental stage in international business is born global firm. That's the clue right there. Firms that are born to be global. So this is a branch in international entrepreneurship. They talk about innovative startups that pursue foreign markets in an early age. So two main reasons how born globals become almost a norm. First is globalization. We've talked about globalization in the first few weeks. Consumers having similar tastes, so it's easier to produce things, and there's advances in communication and transportation, easier to convey message, easier to do promotion. Amazon.com is one of the original firms in Born Global. Why? Within just 5 years, they are able to internationalize their operation in multiple countries. So they did that because internet is increasingly used at the time, and a lot of people are beginning to have similar taste. They sell books initially, and books can be translated. So very very small adaptation. Yeah, English books translated to multiple languages, for example. And they expand from books to merchandise, for clothing and so on. So next, after firms internationalize, how can they gain and sustain competitive advantage? So these theories, they focus on multinational enterprises that expanded abroad since 1950s. So two explanations here. If firms internationalize through FDI, they can internationalize through monopoly, through internalization, and through a combination of ownership, location, and also internalization. Firms can also gain and sustain competitive advantage if they do not internationalize through FDI. They can do that through collaborative ventures and also networks. So let's look into the FDI based explanation in how firms can gain and sustain competitive advantage. So since the multinational enterprise was traditionally the major player in international business, scholars offered numerous explanations of what makes this firm pursue and succeed in internationalization. And they focus on FDI because that is one of the main strategies to internationalize. The monopolistic advantage theory suggests that multinational companies will choose FDI as a strategy to do internationalization, because it provides the firm with control over resources and capabilities in the foreign market, and it provides the firm with a degree of monopolistic power relative to foreign competitors. So the key sources of monopolistic advantage will include knowledge, patent, sole ownership. So it makes sense for companies to internationalize through FDI. If they do licensing, if they do franchising, the trademarks, the trade secrets can be copied. So MNEs will internationalize through FDI because they have monopolistic advantage theory based on whatever uniqueness that they have, key sources that they have. Samsung, they are able to internationalize through FDI because they have monopolistic advantage in consumer electronics. Nestle, they are able to internationalize through FDI because they have monopolistic advantage in manufacturing technology. Next is internalization. Internalization, do not get confused with internationalization. The key word here is internal. So this theory explains how multinational companies choose to acquire and retain one or more value chain activities inside itself, because it will provide multinational companies with greater control over its foreign operation. So it is an answer to deal with external partners. Companies worry with external partner is if they get their technology stolen, if they get their knowledge stolen. So they have to internalize their value chain. For example, in China, Intel, they own a majority of their value chain, so that their knowledge, patent and other assets will not be misused, abused or obtained by their competitors. Firms through FDI can also gain and sustain competitive advantage based on three conditions. According to Dunning's eclectic paradigm, there are three conditions that determine whether or not a company will enter a foreign country to FDI. Is it through ownership, location and internalization? Notice that there's addition of location here. Company will succeed through FDI if they have ownership specific advantages. Do they have specific technology special for them? Do they have internalization advantages? Their supply chain, can they be internalized or not? If they can be internalized, they have much control over its operation, so that they can gain location specific advantages from the country that they are targeting at. So ownership specific advantages refer to knowledge, skills, capabilities, relationships or physical assets that the firm owns and which are the basis of its competitive advantages. Location, this is similar to comparative advantage. It can be natural resources, local labor, skilled labor, and all these processes can be internalized in their value chain activities. Around 1980s, firms realized they can also internationalize without FDI. FDI is expensive, FDI is high commitment, FDI is high risk. So they began to recognize the importance of collaborative ventures because they are more flexible. First, through international collaborative ventures, still firms can gain and sustain competitive advantage. ICV, or International Collaborative Venture, is a form of cooperation between two or more firms where firms pool resources and capability to create synergy. So, firms, this collaboration partners are able to access their know-how, knowledge, capital, and so on. So this will help overcome government imposed obstacles. Two types of ventures: equity based, where firms can create legal entity, or project based, so firms still can cooperate without creating new entity. Both of these projects can enable firms, partnering firms, to access each other's knowledge, skills, capabilities, and also address government-based barriers. Firms can also sustain, gain competitive advantage through networks and relational assets, their internal assets. Relational assets is their willingness and capability to access, shape and engage in economically beneficial relationship, their ability to build relationship. The focus is on networks. How companies can have skills and asset to create relationship. First, they have to have reputation, so people will want to work with them. People or companies can work with them. So these networks can include manufacturers, suppliers, retailers. This is to relieve competitive pressure, technological dynamics, and so on. One of the best industry to understand networks and relational asset is the airline industry. Based on Malaysia Airlines, of course, they are not able to serve all countries in the world through their flights. It's just too expensive, not so feasible. So what they do, they have to build networks with all these airline. And this airline will only network and create relationship with Malaysia Airlines if Malaysia Airlines have good reputation, because they are serving each other's customers as well. So this is how multiple companies can gain and sustain competitive advantage. So a lot of theories today. What are the implications? We discuss about nations. We discuss about firms. Both of them compete, both of them internationalize. We discussed that no two countries are the same in terms of resources and the efficiency at which these resources are being put at use. So as managers, it's important for you to understand the differences of the host country and make use of the uniqueness, match them with the capabilities of the firm. So a lot of theories today: firm level, nation level, understanding why nations trade, understanding how nations can enhance competitive advantage, understanding why firms internationalize, understanding how they can sustain competitive advantage after they have internationalized. A lot of theories, yes, but there are multiple examples that you can relate to with these theories. To understand this topic even better, try to imagine any country or any firms and relate them with the theories here. That is all from me today. Take time to understand the theories, read them, maybe refer to the additional resources that I've given, so you can prepare yourself for the next lecture. That is all from me. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.